In 1930, Albert Einstein sat down to write a revelation. It wasn't about physics, it wasn't about relativity, or the nature of light, or the structure of the atom. It was about something far more personal, something he had been thinking about for his entire life. Why are we here? The essay was called What I Believe. It was published in a volume called Guiding Principles, alongside the thoughts of other great minds of the 20th century. But Einstein's contribution stood apart because Einstein didn't just believe in physics, he believed in something much stranger, something that would shock most people who think they understand his worldview. I'm going to tell you what Einstein discovered about the reason you were born. Not a religious answer, not a philosophical abstraction, a practical, concrete understanding of why you exist and what you are supposed to do with your life. And I promise you, by the end of this, you will see yourself differently than you ever have before. Einstein began his essay with a remarkable admission. "Strange is our situation here upon Earth," he wrote. "Each of us comes for a short visit, not knowing why, yet sometimes seeming to divine a purpose." Think about those words. Einstein, the greatest physicist who ever lived, was admitting that he did not know why we are here. He wasn't pretending to have answers he didn't have. He was being honest about the fundamental mystery of existence. But then he said something that changed everything from the standpoint of daily life. However, there is one thing we do know. That man is here for the sake of other men. This is the first clue to understanding Einstein's view of the purpose of life. You were not born for yourself. You were born for others. This might sound like something a pastor might preach, to encourage goodwill. But Einstein meant it in a much deeper sense. Let me explain what he was really saying, because this is where most people misunderstand Einstein completely. Einstein continued his thought with words that reveal the depth of his insight. Man is here for the sake of other men. Above all, for those upon whose smile and well-being our own happiness depends, and also for the countless unknown souls with whose fate we are connected by a bond of sympathy. Do you understand what Einstein was saying? He wasn't talking about goodwill. He wasn't talking about being nice to people. He was talking about the fundamental structure of human existence. We are not separate beings who occasionally choose to help each other. We are interconnected in ways that most of us never recognize. "Many times a day," Einstein wrote, "I realize how much my own outer and inner life is built upon the labors of my fellow humans, both living and dead, and how earnestly I must exert myself in order to give in return as much as I have received." This is not morality. This is not religion. This is physics. Einstein understood that every aspect of his existence depended on other human beings. The food he ate was grown by farmers. The clothes he wore were made by workers. The ideas he thought were built on the work of scientists who came before him. The language he used to think was created by countless generations of human beings over thousands of years. You are not self-sufficient. You have never been self-sufficient. You could not exist for a single day without the work of millions of other people, most of whom you will never meet, many of whom are already dead. This is not a metaphor. This is the literal truth of your existence. And here is where Einstein made his crucial leap. If you are completely dependent on others for your existence, then your purpose must be connected to others as well. You cannot find meaning in isolation because you do not exist in isolation. The very idea of a separate self is, as Einstein would later call it, an optical delusion of consciousness. In 1950, Einstein wrote a letter that contains what might be his most profound insight into the nature of human existence. A man wrote to Einstein after the death of his young son, asking for words of comfort. Einstein's response has become one of the most quoted passages in all of 20th century philosophy. A human being is a part of the whole. called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Einstein was saying that the very experience of being a separate self is an illusion, not in some mystical, vague sense, but in a precise, physical sense. You are not a thing that exists independently of the universe. You are a pattern in the universe, a temporary configuration of matter and energy that appears to be separate, but is actually completely interconnected with everything else. And here is the purpose. Here is why you were born. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. The reason you were born is to expand, not to accumulate things, not to achieve status, not to protect your separate self, but to expand your consciousness until you recognize that you are not separate at all, until you feel the reality of your connection to every other living being. This is not religion. Einstein explicitly rejected organized religion throughout his life. This is not mysticism in the sense that most people understand it. Einstein had no patience for vague spiritual claims. This is a conclusion that Einstein reached through physics, through careful observation of how the universe actually works. But I need to tell you something else, something that makes this even more radical. Einstein believed that the expansion of consciousness he described was not optional. It was not a nice thing to do if you had time after pursuing your own goals. It was the only thing that could make your life meaningful. The man who regards his own life and that of his fellow creatures as meaningless is not merely unhappy, but barely suited to live, Einstein wrote. Think about the harshness of those words. Barely suited to live. Einstein was saying that if you cannot find meaning in connection to others, there is something wrong with you, not morally wrong, psychologically wrong. You are missing something essential about what it means to be human. Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile, Einstein said on another occasion. This has become one of his most famous quotes. But most people interpret it as a nice sentiment, a suggestion that we should try to help people when we can. Einstein meant something much more extreme. He meant that a life lived solely for yourself is literally worthless, not just less valuable, worthless, because a self that exists in isolation is an illusion, and you simply cannot build a meaningful life on an illusion. Let me share what Einstein revealed about the nature of value itself, because this is where his thinking becomes truly revolutionary. Einstein stated, "The true value of a human being is determined primarily by the measure and the sense in which he has attained liberation from the self." Liberation from the self. This sounds like Buddhism. It sounds like Hinduism. It echoes the mystical traditions of every major religion. But Einstein arrived at this conclusion through science, through reason, through careful observation of how the universe actually works. The self is a prison. The self is a delusion. The purpose of life is to escape the self by expanding your awareness until you recognize your profound connection to everything. Now, I want to tell you about a letter Einstein received back in 1951. A college student named Ashley Bennett wrote to him asking a very simple question: why are we alive? This was in the aftermath of World War II and the Korean War. Young people were struggling to find meaning in a world that seemed determined to relentlessly destroy itself. Einstein's response was characteristic. He wrote, "The question why in the human sphere is easy to answer. To create satisfaction for ourselves and for other people. In the extra-human sphere, the question has no meaning." Notice what Einstein clearly said. In the human sphere, the answer is easy. We exist to create satisfaction, not just for ourselves, but for ourselves and for other people. This, according to the greatest physicist who ever lived, is the purpose of human life. But also notice what he said about the extra-human sphere. Outside of human concerns, the question of why simply has no meaning. The universe doesn't have a purpose in the way that humans do. Stars don't exist for a reason. Galaxies don't have goals. The cosmos simply is. But humans are different. Humans can ask why. And for humans, the answer to why is always connected to other humans. You exist to create satisfaction, to reduce suffering, to increase joy, and not just for yourself, but for everyone you can reach. This brings me to the deepest level of Einstein's understanding, the level that most people unfortunately never reach, because it requires confronting something uncomfortable about themselves. Einstein believed that intuition, not intellect, reveals purpose. He said something that really surprised many people who thought of him as a purely rational thinker. It is not intellect, but intuition which advances humanity. Intuition tells man his purpose in this life. What did Einstein mean by intuition? He wasn't talking about mere hunches or gut feelings in the ordinary sense. He was referring to a direct perception of truth that goes far beyond logical reasoning. A knowing that does not come from thinking, but from being. Einstein spent his entire career trusting intuition. His greatest discoveries came not from dry calculations, but from vivid thought experiments. What would it be like to ride a beam of light? What would happen if I fell in an elevator? These intuitions led to special relativity and general relativity. The math came later, primarily to verify what intuition had already revealed. And Einstein believed the same was true for understanding the purpose of life. You cannot think your way to meaning. You have to feel it. You have to perceive it directly. You have to recognize your connection to other beings, not just as a dry intellectual proposition, but as a living, breathing, felt experience. This is precisely why Einstein wrote so eloquently about cosmic religious feeling. Not mere belief in a personal God, not blind faith in some supposed afterlife, but the overwhelming sense of awe that comes from contemplating the vast universe, the feeling that you are an integral part of something immensely beautiful and incredibly meaningful. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious, Einstein eloquently wrote. It is the source of all true art and science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. Do you understand what Einstein was getting at? He was saying that the capacity for awe is the capacity for meaning. If you cannot feel wonder, you cannot find purpose, because purpose is not simply something you think, it's something you truly feel. It's the intuitive recognition that you are part of something far larger than yourself. Now let me share how all of this directly connects to the practical question of how to actually live your life. Because Einstein wasn't just some abstract philosopher. He was someone who genuinely tried to live according to his deeply held beliefs. Einstein was remarkably generous throughout his life. He helped countless young scientists get jobs and funding. He wrote heartfelt letters of recommendation for people he barely knew. He freely gave away most of his income. When he won the Nobel Prize, he generously gave the money to his first wife as part of their divorce settlement. He didn't seem particularly attached to material possessions. Why was he so generous? Because Einstein deeply understood that generosity wasn't some kind of painful sacrifice. It was simply the natural expression of recognizing that you are not separate. When you help another person, you are not diminishing yourself in any way. You are actually expanding yourself. You are widening your circle of compassion. You are becoming more of what you truly are. The life of the individual has meaning only insofar as it aids in making the life of every living thing nobler and more beautiful, Einstein so profoundly wrote. This is not merely a casual suggestion. This is a clear definition, meaning is connection, meaning is contribution, meaning is the expansion of self, until self includes everything. But here is what truly troubles me about the way people usually interpret Einstein's timeless message. They often turn it into some kind of burdensome moral imperative. You should help others. You should be generous. You should think of others before yourself. Einstein wasn't just giving simplistic moral advice. He was describing the fundamental nature of reality. He was saying that the seemingly real experience of separation is ultimately an illusion, and that living according to an illusion inevitably leads to suffering. Not because some judgmental God punishes selfishness, but because selfishness is actually based on a profound mistake about the very nature of reality itself. When you live solely for yourself, you are desperately trying to satisfy a self that doesn't truly exist. You accumulate material things for a supposed being that is merely a temporary pattern. You protect an ego that is nothing but a deceptive optical illusion. And no matter how much you accumulate, no matter how much you protect, you will never feel truly satisfied, because you are relentlessly feeding an illusion. But when you choose to live generously for others, you are finally aligning yourself with the underlying nature of reality. You are consciously recognizing that you are not separate. You are widening your circle until you genuinely feel the pain and the joy of other beings as your own. And in that widening, in that beautiful expansion, you find something that simply cannot be found any other way. Peace, meaning, the blessed end of the restless search for true satisfaction. This is the real reason you were born. Not to achieve things just for yourself, not to build some huge ego empire, not to prove your worth by piling up status and possessions. You were born to realize that you're a piece of something infinite, and to live your life knowing that. Einstein knew this. He wrote about it all the time, and at the end, facing death with total peace, he showed that he actually lived it. He wasn't scared to die because he got that death is just the end of a temporary thing. The atoms keep going. The energy keeps going. The huge cosmic show he was part of just keeps on keeping on. Let me tell you something that happened near the end of Albert Einstein's life. He got asked what advice he'd give to young people. His answer wasn't about getting a great job. It wasn't about being a superstar scientist. It was about opening up your mind. Try not to become just a successful guy. Instead, try to be a guy with value. A person of value gives more than they get. See how Einstein defined value as giving. Not what you get done or what you own, but what you put in. The more you give, the more valuable you are. And not just in some moral way, but in a real way. You become more real, more substantial, more connected to everything. This is why Einstein had a peace that a lot of people couldn't understand. He wasn't holding on tight to his own little self. He wasn't desperately trying to make his ego live forever. He was living the truth he had figured out, that the self thing is kind of an illusion, that connection is what's real, and that life's about making your circle of caring bigger and bigger until it includes everything. Now, I want to talk about something that might be bugging you. This sounds nice and all, but what does it mean in real life? How do you actually make your circle of caring bigger? How do you break out of your own head? Einstein never gave like a step-by-step guide. He wasn't some guru handing out meditation tips or rules. But I think his whole life is the answer. You break out of your own head by paying attention, by really looking at the world and seeing how much you depend on other people, by noticing all the work that goes into everything you use, every idea you have, every word you say, by really feeling, not just thinking, that you're part of something huge. Einstein spent his life paying attention to the universe, not just studying it in books, but really thinking about it, being amazed by it, feeling the mystery of it all, seeing how weird, how beautiful, how unexplainable it all is. This is the practice. This is how you make your circle bigger. You stop taking things for granted. You stop acting like the world is just the background of your story. You start seeing that every moment is a miracle, that every time you meet someone, you're meeting yourself, that every kind thing you do is like making yourself bigger. Many times a day, I realize how much my own outer and inner life is built upon the labors of my fellow humans, Einstein wrote. Many times a day. Not just sometimes. Not just when he remembered. Many times every single day, Einstein stopped to realize how connected he was to everyone. This is the practice, realization, attention, awareness, not believing in some rules, not following some moral code, just seeing the truth of your life. You're not separate. You've never been separate. Every moment you've lived has been made possible by tons of other people. And when you realize this, something happens. The walls of your little prison start to crumble. The illusion starts to fade. You start to feel what you really are, not just some separate self trying to survive in a scary world, but the universe itself, experiencing life through your eyes. This is the real reason you were born, to wake up from the illusion of being separate, to realize who you really are, to make your circle of caring so big that it includes everything. Einstein figured this out. He spent his life living it, and at the end, he faced death with peace because he knew that what he really was could never die. Now you know. Now you understand what Einstein figured out about why you're here. But I want to leave you with one more thing. Something Einstein understood but didn't always talk about. Opening up your mind, like Einstein talked about, it's not easy. It goes against everything in our bodies. Our brains grew up to protect ourselves. Our instincts are all about us staying alive, not everyone else. The illusion of being separate. It's not a mistake. It's how our brains are supposed to work. That means making your circle of caring bigger takes work. It means going against what you feel like doing. It means constantly reminding yourself of the truth, even when you feel like you need to protect yourself first. Einstein understood this. Nobody is able to achieve this completely, he wrote about trying to care more. But the striving for such achievement is in itself a part of the liberation and a foundation for inner security. Do you get what he's saying? Being perfect isn't the point. Being completely free from your own ego might be impossible, but trying matters. The effort matters. The direction you're going matters. Every time you start caring about more than just yourself, even a little bit, you're getting closer to the truth. You're getting more in sync with what's real. You're doing what you were born to do. Einstein also said something that might surprise you about all this trying. My peace of mind is often troubled by the depressing sense that I have borrowed too heavily from the work of other men. Even Einstein, one of the greatest people who ever lived, felt like he hadn't given enough. He felt like he owed more than he ever could repay. This wasn't just being humble. This was realizing that his whole life, even his genius, was a gift from everyone who came before him. If Einstein felt like he had borrowed too much, what about the rest of us? How much have we taken from other people? How much have we gotten that we can never repay? The food, the house, the language, the ideas, the love, it all came from other people. It all was given without any way to truly pay it back. This isn't meant to make you feel guilty. Guilt is just another way of thinking about yourself. This is meant to make you feel grateful. When you realize how much you've gotten, the natural thing to feel isn't shame, but thankfulness. And thankfulness naturally leads to wanting to give. You want to give because you see how much has been given to you. This is the cycle that Einstein understood. Realization leads to thankfulness. Thankfulness leads to giving. Generosity, that leads to connection. Connection, in turn, fosters peace, and peace, that leads to even greater recognition. It's a virtuous cycle, expanding infinitely, or as infinitely as a human life allows. But there's one more thing, one more vital point I need to share with you, something that Einstein believed, but rarely emphasized because he knew it would be misunderstood. Einstein believed that most people would never truly understand what he was saying, not because they lacked intelligence, but because the optical delusion of consciousness is so incredibly powerful that most people just can't see past it. They hear words like connection and compassion, and they think they understand, but they don't feel the truth. They don't truly perceive the reality of their situation. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. That's Einstein himself. Einstein was saying out that some people are asleep. They're alive biologically, but they are dead spiritually. They've lost that capacity for wonder. They've forgotten how to be awed. And without wonder, without awe, they cannot perceive the truth of their existence. They remain trapped in the prison of the self, accumulating, protecting, and defending, never recognizing that the very thing they're defending doesn't really exist. You're watching this because something within you is still awake. Something in you can still pause and wonder. Something in you recognizes that there must be more to life than the endless pursuit of personal satisfaction. That something is the real you, not the ego, with its fears and desires, not the personality, with its habits and preferences. The real you, the part that can recognize truth when it hears it, the part that can feel connection, even across the barrier of a screen. This is what Einstein was speaking to. This is what he spent his life trying to awaken in others, the recognition that you are not what you think you are, that you are something much larger, much more connected, much more eternal. The real reason you were born is to remember this, to wake up from the dream of separation, to feel the truth that Einstein discovered through physics and philosophy and a lifetime of paying attention. You are part of the whole called by us, the universe. You are limited in time and space, but that limitation is not what it seems, because time is an illusion and space is an illusion, and the boundary between you and everything else is the most powerful illusion of all. When you see through these illusions, when you widen your circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures, when you feel the reality of your connection to everything, you will understand why you were born. You will fulfill the purpose that Einstein discovered. You will be, at last, what you have always been, not a separate self, struggling against the universe, but the universe itself, experiencing its own beauty through your eyes. Einstein figured this out. He lived it. He died knowing it, and now you know it too. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you let it fade back into the background noise of daily life? Will you return to the prison of the self, accumulating, protecting, and defending? Or will you begin the practice that Einstein described? Will you start recognizing many times a day how much your life depends on others? Will you begin to widen your circle of compassion, one encounter at a time? The choice is yours. Einstein could only point the way. You have to walk it. But know this, the path he pointed to is not a path of sacrifice. It's not a path of self-denial. It's a path of expansion, a path of becoming more of what you really are, a path of waking up to the infinite beauty and meaning that has been there all along, hidden behind the optical delusion of a separate self. You were born for this. This is why you exist. This is the purpose that Einstein discovered and that he tried to share with anyone who would listen. Now, it is yours.